Ladies, gentlemen, welcome to my video. This is Sensi speaking and I'll be your host. I hope you're all well and having a lovely day. Before we start, I just want to say that this is my first video recorded with commentary, so if you happen to enjoy it or find this helpful in any way, please subscribe and give us a like, as this will massively help my channel out. On this video, I'll be discussing my top reasons why you should be playing New World and break down why this game may be for you. These are also the reasons that captivated me as a person who originally had no interest in this game. So I felt the need to share this to those who are thinking of trying the game but haven't made their minds up just yet. The main aspects I will cover in this video are community, combat, gathering and environment. And with that being said, let's get straight into it. New World has a heavy focus on community, and you can see that the community aspect has been taken into consideration during development. So what do I mean by this, and what aspects are there in the game that can have a positive impact on the activity? Firstly, although this may be an unpopular opinion, there aren't any instance matchmaking for dungeons. Now you're probably thinking, how does this affect the activity in open world, let alone the community itself? Well, this affects it because if you can't find a group in chat, it leaves you with the option of getting yourself out there in the open world to find people to group up with. I can say for myself that there have been so many times I've grouped up with people just by hanging outside the dungeon areas, or expeditions as they are called in New World. On top of this, there's also a requirement to get into an expedition where you need orbs, which are like keys for entry. Since you can't spam expedition entries without them, it gives you an incentive to look for others to go with, as each player can only get one orb from the main questline. So even if you did have a static group to run dungeons with, you're still going to want to find another person with an orb or another group once you've all used yours up, at least in the early game anyway. It's these kinds of decisions, whether intentional or not, will help favour the population in terms of not just a player base, but activity around the map. Another thing to mention is that every region has a settlement that can be claimed by siege. Now, a siege can only happen once there has been a declaration of war against a holding faction, and to declare war, you need to push your faction's influence to 100% within that region. This can be done by open world PvP and completing the PvP faction quests. Since any region in the game can be pushed, it means that there's always going to be open world activity provided there are companies competing for territory. The in-game voice allows you to talk to anybody within close proximity, and to be honest, I don't need to say much more about this. You can have a lot of fun with such a simple feature, and there are plenty of funny videos to watch online involving this feature alone. Now this one is an important one because I think combat for any game is a make or break, so I'm going to talk about where my opinion stands on this topic, as the combat may not seem appetizing to some who've only watched videos of the game, but it really cannot be criticised until you've played it. New World plays like a survival game, but it's set as an MMO, and with that being said, it has a basic combat system with blocking and dodging mechanics, a consumed stamina and just 3 abilities to use from each weapon. This means it is welcoming to new players, and unlike other MMOs, it doesn't require countless of keybinds that can be a turn-off for an entirely new player base who may not have had any MMO experience. But does this mean the game is less skill-based? Not necessarily. It's just a completely different take on gameplay where skill comes from understanding the pace, skill animation, knowing when to utilise iframe dodging, how to position yourself, and being conservative with your abilities, and even having good aim on certain weapons. And one thing I love about this game is that you can't go around executing a wombo combo, something that can't be said for a lot of other MMOs out there. And while New World includes magical elements, they've kept a lot of realism within the game, especially when taking physics into consideration. Everything in the game feels like it has weight to it, and the impressive sound design hugely complements the actions. Every hit, including auto attacks, actually feels like it lands when it does. The sound also distorts depending on your surroundings and what you hit. Just take a look at these clips for a few examples. These subtle changes create an incredibly immersive experience from such a basic combat system. Now, I've heard some people say, including myself when starting out, that the game's combat is clunky, but I only thought this because I was comparing it to combat systems of other MMOs, where generally you'll get a fast-paced tab targeting system, to which I think it's wrong to even make a comparison. Now, going back to my skeptical approach with the combat when I began playing in the betas, once I accepted its difference and stopped trying to compare it with other MMOs such as BDO, Aeon or Arcade, I began to realise it's just an entirely different take on the MMO genre, and when you let yourself appreciate its realistic approach to combat, you become adjusted to the pacing, and you will not only become familiar with it, but you'll align yourself with the mechanics, which will result in a more fluid gameplay and in turn making it a more enjoyable experience. Now here are some of my points on gathering and why it needs a mention. If you're somebody like me who's never really been interested in gathering, New World is the one exception out of many games that has sparked my interest in this area of gameplay. This is because the game offers an environment that is immersive at a level beyond any other MMO that is currently out. When having to do some gathering for quests, including mining and chopping trees, I found myself appreciating the areas around me to a further extent. It became a routine during exploring new areas, and doing this not only felt satisfying but enjoyable, which is something I never really felt before from an aspect I have always found boring in other games. There is an abundance of materials the world has to offer, which makes it incredibly easy to gather, and it literally turns what would be a chore into a more pleasurable experience. You can literally gather, mine or hunt on the go, and the whole world is there for the taking. Practically anything you see is harvestable. And when you do go out to gather materials, this is when you really start to appreciate the design of the world itself, and you notice little nods to realism when you are on your ventures. Now lastly, I want to talk about the environmental design and how the atmosphere affects the general experience within the game. Just like combat, the design of the environment and a player's interaction within it can make or break the game. However, the environment is what will make the game come to life. It's one of the main things that will make you want to do stuff in the open world, to explore and create adventures with your friends. To go out and PvP or gather and mine, the options of any kind of gameplay will be an experience enhanced just from the sheer efforts that have been put into the design of the environment. From sounds to visuals to a world you can interact with, this game does not disappoint when it comes to the environment, and as you progress you discover a world richer than the lands you've come from. There are even intricate and small details that you may not even pick up on at first, but will notice as you venture on, simply because of how integrated and seamlessly fluid the world is. I remember just realising the small details of such designs that really made the world pop, such as each plant having its own motion as if there was an actual breeze brushing through the area. But this of course is nothing without the sound to accompany it, like the echoes or crashing sounds from other trees falling elsewhere. Let me show you a small clip to demonstrate how sound adds to the atmosphere in New World. And there you have it, you can even hear the screams of someone getting wrecked in PvP from afar. So that's everything I had to talk about in this video. I hope you enjoyed it, even if it was viewed as a form of copium. But not long now guys, 4 days left. I'll see you all in Eternum and wish you all a good launch. Thank you again for watching. Cheers.